Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I am Nerdarchist Ted, and we're gonna sit here and we're gonna do our Friday live chat. So I'm gonna toss it over to Matt to introduce himself and see what's going on.
Hi, I'm Matthew J. Hansen. I'm the head of Sneak Attack Press. We're an indie publisher, publish uh, stuff for a lot of games. Dungeons and Dragons is what we're talking about today, but we also do some Savage Worlds. We've done a little Mutants and Masterminds. Got our own system called Abstract Dungeon. And I'm here today to talk about the Runewild, which is a setting slash campaign that is up on Kickstarter right now. It is a dark fairy tale, fey heavy sandbox setting that you can explore, and you can spend a whole campaign in it, basically level 1 through 10. Or the great thing about it is there are also lots of ways that you can just pick stuff out of it. Encounter here, encounter there. There's 100 different keyed encounter locations. All of those are at least a few paragraphs long, and I think it's 17 are like little keyed maps of their own with encounters within the encounters. So those 17 things could be like a night worth of gaming on their own, or you can just mix and match and build it whatever you want.
So I've had a chance to go and check out the Kickstarter. For you guys out there, if you want to jump down into the description, there is a link to the Kickstarter for Runewild. It looks pretty awesome. The artwork I've been kind of blown away by. Um, so I'm really enjoying and really looking forward to being able to check this out. We've got was it a little under a week left in the campaign,
Yep.
and we're a little bit more than halfway to the goal. So I'm gonna reach out to all of you Nerdarchy fans to go check this out, and if you feel this is something that you want to add to your gaming shelf, please support it. If not, please share it out there. We want to make sure this is something that happens, so that those who have already backed it have a chance to really get in and grab get to add this to their gaming shelf. So we got 123 backers with 6 days to go. You got a variety of different pledge levels. You can view the PDF. You can get the PDF, and the print, and you can get the print book for only $30. So I think that's right in line with what Amazon charges for your basic core books from D&D. And is that's a soft cover, but you can add a little bit more to get it in hardcover if that's something that you're interested in. Um, so, do you want to get into like one of the options that you can do is the Denizen of the Runewild entry? Do you want to get into that aspect of it, sir?
Yeah, for sure. So this is one of the things I love about doing Kickstarter campaigns is you get the back and forth between the publisher and the readers. Old school publishing, it was just you hand something out and hope people like it, and after you've done it, you might get feedback. But with crowdfunding and Kickstarters and all that, you can have real as you're going process. And so one of the ways that we're doing that is with the denizens, and that's a pledge level that's just $5 more than either the PDF or the hardcover. And with that, you contribute somebody who lives a fey creature who's native to the Runewild. You put that in the book. It's a short description, and then there's going to be a couple of tables where the GM who gets it is like, oh, the party ran into somebody. I don't know who it is though. They'll roll randomly at that table, and someone will pop up, and it might be the creature you created.
That is always fun, and if this is if this becomes a tangible product, you can get to be able to share something from your imagination, your creation, then with everyone else who gets the book. I think that's a pretty happening thing.
Hmm.
So, what made you decide to make Runewild? Is this something that you've been playing in for a while? Is this something that like has been near and dear to you?
Yeah, so it actually started in my weekly game. And my friend Bill, who couldn't be here today, is actually the author of it. He's GMing the D&D game for us. And I started playing it, and I'm like, this is really good. Um, there is just so much creativity in the setting and so much like things that are common tropes, but just twisted enough that it gives you a new perspective on things. Uh, and I said, you know what, this would make a really fun product to put out. I've got this company. I talked to Bill. He said, yeah, that sounds like fun. So after we finished playing it through, he wrote up everything. And we've been going back and forth. He's been giving me the rough drafts, and I've been giving him suggestions. And we've gone through that process a couple times, and we've got a draft now that is complete, but we're also, again, welcoming our Kickstarters, our backers, to give us feedback on that. There is links in a backer only post that can bring you to all of the current drafts. So if you are interested in taking a look at what we got, pledge any level, $1. You can go check out what we've got so far. We're welcoming backer feedback, going to do at least one more revision on those. Yeah, and I'm very excited by it because I played it. I loved it when I played it. I've loved reading it. Um, there's just so much creativity and new takes on old things, and um, it's got a very sort of spooky vibe to it.
So,
That
so
sorry,
it's called the Runewild. So I'm guessing that's your own take on the Feywild.
kind of. I mean, it's like it is in the prime material plane, but the Feywild has uh, crossed over, sort
Mm-hmm.
of.
Okay.
So the Feywild does exist still in the setting, and because that is fortunately one of the things that is in the open gaming license SRPG. So we can reference the Feywild. Um, but yeah, so it'll say like, these guys disappeared to the Feywild or whatever. Um, but so it's in the prime material plane, but very heavily influenced by fairy and the Feywild and all that.
I'm a huge fan of fey creatures and the whopping span of you know interesting dynamics that you can do with them when you've got creatures that for the most part they don't they don't view things the same way because of their own immortality and what have you that makes them essentially aliens to the people who live primarily on the prime. And if you have any of that, adapted or adopted into this section of Runewild, I think it's great. I look at the picture that I chose for you know the cover art for this video, and it's got this like canine fox fighting or arguing with this quadrupedal plant monster, and I'm like, I love everything about that particular piece. And realistically, if the rest of the art looks anywhere near this, like I'm clawing at the computer to try and get this because it's just that amazing. Um, you've got the upgrades and add-on section that you can look at. There's previews here on the Kickstarter page if you want to get into it. But if you're going to back this, like, all right, what it comes with, you've got a history of the Runewild and surrounding settlements, 100 detailed encounter areas for player characters to explore, new optional rules for exploring and resting, total thumbs up for optional rules. I love anytime you can give DMs new options to play with, because it's going to greatly change the way games go. Advice for running a campaign or sandbox campaign. Many GMs out there don't know how to do anything other than run a set of adventures that have been pre-prepared. So giving tips on that, total thumbs up. A new feat called Fey Touched. I'm curious as to what that is, and definitely inclined there. You get 13 new magic items. Love that. 32 new monsters: clockwork dwarves, fey lions, forest sloths, and a terrifyingly beautiful golden bodak.
Mhm.
Yay is all I can say with that. And there's more. So like, I don't know how to encourage you guys any further to go and support this project. I am totally 100% on board about wanting to check out this book.
Yeah, thank you. That's great things to say. And let me just follow up on some of the things you mentioned, like
Yeah.
the optional rules and stuff. Um, like one thing we noticed doing a sandbox campaign is that like the D&D system is sort of built around expecting, I think it's like 8 to 10 encounters per day. And when you're doing a hex crawl, like that oftentimes is not what you get. You'll go to a hex and get one encounter and go to the next hex and get another counter. And then you've spent so much travel time that the day's over and you take your long rest. And that means that like those encounters, you just can breeze through. So those are some of the things that we looked at with the optional rules is like, how can we do stuff like modify the long rest, short rest system so that you don't just breeze through those encounters and you can do stuff that's more in line with the default assumption that D&D is working with. And then also have some other rules about the creature or curses in the Fey or in the Runewild because there are some really fun curses that you can get. And when I say fun, I mean fun from a GM perspective or fun from a story perspective, not necessarily fun from a character perspective. But things like there's a glade where you where you get a curse, and then anytime you fall asleep, you teleport back to that glade. So you have to figure out, if you want to go somewhere else and not always wind up back there, figure out a way to break that curse. You can just use the default D&D and, I cast remove curse and I'm not cursed anymore. Or you can look at some of our optional rules to make those curses a little bit more interesting. Think of like the classic frog prince. You can't just cast remove curse to turn the frog back into a prince. You need to get the princess to kiss him, things like that.
Well, that is awesome. I'm a huge fan of curses, and while I'm aware that it's very easy to kind of come up with, oh, this just doesn't work that way. You can't just use remove curse. Like a lot of GMs out there, like, oh well, it says remove curse, gets rid of curses. Nothing I can do about that. It's in the rules, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
realize like the power is yours. You can make those changes. So to have that in the book, I think that's a pretty happy thing.
Yeah.
So what so there was a mention in the chat. James Leslie says that he loves sneak attack books. He's got some stuff from Savage Worlds. What other stuff have you guys worked on or made?
Yeah. So one of our most recent things is actually for Savage World and D&D and has a system free setting book. It's called Drakkenheim, City of Bones. Side note, if you like the art you've been seeing for Runewild, same artist did everything for Drakkenheim. Her name is Joyce. I think you say Mauiera. She's Chilean. I hope I didn't mangle her last name. But yeah, she's done amazing art. Drakkenheim has amazing art, and the premise of that it actually started when D&D Next playtest came out, and I'm like, we have one adventure, we need some more adventures. So I put out just a fan adventure for Drakkenheim, and in that adventure, you you end up finding like a cult-ish thing that worships them, or not worships, but is really into undead. Um, and uh, the problem is that they're not like the big bad guy. There's actually a hobgoblin army coming, and it's heavily in your favor to ally with these necromancers. And because of that, the city ends up saying, okay, well, necromancy, I guess that's okay. We'll chill with that. And so in the setting book, like that's a big part of the city. You've got, you know, civil service jobs that no one really wants, like, you know, cleaning out the sewer. Well, let's get some zombies and we'll have the zombies do that. And the necromancers also have a lot of political influence. There's a lot of aristocrats who are there, so they sort of have, um, yeah, they have a lot of power in the city, and a lot of people are like uncomfortable about it, but don't really want to do anything about it because they're worried about like getting retaliated against because of the people in power. And then there's also like clandestine organizations secretly fight against the undead, but they're criminals because the people in the government are making the laws that say don't go killing zombies. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in that. For Savage Worlds and Pathfinder, one of the big things we did is called Broken Earth, which is a post-apocalyptic setting. Um, yeah, it's set in Earth. It's set like 100 years ish from now. Nuclear war happened, and you're out there trying to explore and pick up the pieces and rebuild civilization. And then we've got some adventures that were some of our very first products that we made. The one that I still love the most is called Good Little Children Never Grow Up. And just to give you a heads up, we made that very early, so some of the production values are not up to our current standards, but I still love the adventure. It's a great horror themed adventure where you're in a haunted orphanage, and you're trying to solve some mysteries of like what happened, why is it haunted, what was going on here, and also trying to rescue some children who were kidnapped or who went into the orphanage and disappeared. We don't know if they were kidnapped or not.
Uh,
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we have done in the past.
so with was it Drakkenheim you said?
Yep.
Like to me that like that sparks memory of old campaigns, and you never know what players are gonna do. So I find it would be really fun to pull that out and see what the average player does of like being in a place where necromancy is kind of a normal thing. We played a game, and this is back in second edition. We're youngers, we were probably feeling like we wanted to be a jackass that day, but we played a handful of the characters were dwarves, and like the major NPC that we had to talk to for that adventure was a goblin, and we had a very inexperienced, young GM, and it's like, no, you can't kill the goblin. Like, it's needed. Like, he's trying to persuade us as the players, like, please don't screw this up. But like, it's like, but he's a goblin. We're dwarves. Goblins and dwarves, or dwarves hate goblins. I don't see any reason to keep him alive. It was just bad. So now that, veteran gamers that we are, 15, 20 years after, this incident, I'd wonder how the average gamer would treat. I'm lawful good. I'm supposed to obey the rules. Necromancy's bad, but the law says don't do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of fun to kind of play around with. We do have a question in the chat from Cardboard Fortress. Says, does the Feywild have any time dilation? Like people are only there lose a day or week or years. Is there anything in that kind of speaks to those old fairy tales?
Yeah. So the Runewild, I think I said earlier, is influenced by the Feywild. I don't think the characters really go into the Feywild much at all. Like, there's references to it. Um, there is not generally time dilation in the Runewild. There are some like encounters where weird things can happen and characters might lose some time there. Um, yeah, is that so? Like on a small encounter-ish level, not on a grand level.
All right, so we have another question. Guys, if you have any questions for myself or Matthew, please go ahead and throw it in the chat. Just as always, put question or Nerdarchy in front of it. But Josh on Journey says, I've played with friends who have treated the Feywild as separate places. Others have put it as a geographic location. How do you see it in your world?
Yeah, so Feywild I see as a different plane, but that like in the Runewild it can sort of bleed over in places. So that there are places that are more like the Feywild than the rest of the material plane, but um, they're not completely Feywild, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we do it. Like, areas that are close to the Feywild are going to be, more heavily guarded by Fey creatures, plants, animals, that kind of stuff. And they might exist, with, more magical powers or more sentience, for lack of a better word. But the true Feywild, the things that is completely alien, it is a separate plane. That's kind of how we do things here at Nerdarchy.
Yeah, that's how we do it too.
So we were kind of talking off air that you like myself kind of started with second edition and have a pretty rich gaming background. Having played all the editions, and you played a variety of other systems besides D&D, and your current group, you'll play a campaign in whatever system or setting that you're playing, and then when that's done, you'll move on to whatever is next. What are you currently playing and doing?
Yeah. So our current group, we actually have sort of an alternating scheme. So we'll do one week is a D&D week, and then the other week is non-D&D. So D&D wise, first, we just finished up Tomb of Annihilation. We only did the tomb portion of it. So we skipped all the stuff in Troll, like finding a tomb.
Oh, here I was going to say you skipped all the annihilation part and just did the
No,
tomb.
we got annihilated. We actually I was surprised. I expected Esserak to be more scary than he ended up being in that mod. Um, but yeah, so we finished up that, and we're about to start a Planescape campaign.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, where I'm playing a Githyanki wizard who is like a renegade Githyanki. because he's like, you know what? I don't want to be enslaved by the Lich Queen. You know, that's not so cool. I'm gonna go out on my own and join this sort of mercenary group.
So you don't
Um,
do you feel that Vlakith is still looking over your shoulder?
yeah, I'm a little nervous, especially like whenever he leaves Sigil. Um, he's like, I feel like Sigil, like the Lady of Pain's gonna keep her out. But yeah, whenever he pops away from Sigil, he's like, am I gonna run into anyone who's gonna try to keep me, take me back? Yeah, so that's one Tuesday, and then the alternate Tuesdays, we're doing Fate right now. It's a homebrew setting that one of my friends is running, and it's like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon trope of we are humans from Earth who are transported to a magical world, but it's the magical world is very different from like a D&D-esque world. So my character that I play was a crazy cat woman. And it turns out in this world they're magical cats. So like that's her main form of doing stuff is she is collecting magical cats who will attack and defend and like do like all kinds of other miscellaneous magic for her.
So you're Pokemon trainer?
Basically, yeah.
I'm certain there are people out there who would absolutely love that. My kids love Pokemon, and my son's playing a online knockoff Pokemon game that he's enjoying. I never really got into it, but to each their own. I need to play Fate more. Um, you can't see it, but behind me for Christmas I got the Dresden Files Fate books, and at some point in time I really want to get in there and get somebody to run a Dresden game for me, as I'm madly in love with that world. Love those books. Can't wait for the next book in that series to come out. Um, but that's pretty cool that you can bounce back and forth and get other game exposure in there. As I had said, off air, so many people out there. It's like it's D&D or nothing.
Yeah, and like I can appreciate like wanting to play the same system. You don't have to buy any new books, you don't have to spend time learning it. But I just think like as for myself, I really like exploring different settings, different genres, and different mechanics too, and especially seeing like how different mechanics can evoke different genres or different settings better. You know, D&D does great fantasy. It's amazing at. Um, but like if I wanted to do some spaceships, you know, it would be a lot of work to try to adapt D&D to a space opera setting.
That
Uh,
is very true. Now there is, Starfinder, which is the closest thing to D&D with spaceships.
mhm.
There's nothing official for Spelljammer, but realistically you can just be like, oh, I've got a spelljamming engine. I'm using a schooner as my ship, and therefore I don't need to change any of my props, because everything is still kind of that medieval esque look and feel. It's just, as opposed to sailing across the ocean, I'm sailing across space.
Right.
And I've played in some Spelljammer games. I know there's other people who have done likewise, and you can have a lot of fun with it. I'd love to get an official rule set on Spelljammer, just like going back to your current fifth edition game. I'd love to see official Planescape. I'd love to get a source book on just the City of Sigil and the Lady of Pain, and be able to get into all of that stuff with Morning Cannon's Tomb of Foes. I thought, like, okay, well, we got some planar information we're finally talking about the Gith in a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Mayhaps we'll see something down the road, but that won't be till 2019 at the earliest because we already know what they're releasing end of this year. So
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard so when I heard about Mordenkainen's, I thought that maybe the next adventure would be something like, and I thought they're probably still focusing on the realms, but maybe people from the realms will go explore the plains.
right.
But uh, yeah, we know it's water deep. But then I did hear rumors that they're going to be coming out with two new setting books. So I'm hoping one of those might be Planescape.
Well, we have September and November. We have it's Waterdeep is a city based game, and then we have Dungeon of the Mad Wizard in November, which is essentially Under Mountain. It's a mega dungeon. So I mean, we've got two vastly different campaigns that are going to be coming out from they're vastly different from what we've seen in the previous adventures that they've released. Most of them have been these long spiraling or games, whereas this is like, all right, you've got a mega dungeon. Hasn't been one of those before in this. It's totally a city-based game. Hasn't been one of those in fifth edition. All right, great. I'm totally looking forward to to see what they do with that. And realistically, that's going to then teach game masters out there how to properly do a long-winded or a protracted cityscapes game, or how to do a mega dungeon, using official material and be able to, the to add on to it because they'll have in the mega dungeon there's going to be areas where it's like, oh, here's an unfinished section. You as a GM will be able to choose, oh, I'm going to put in my own little map over here and do something that's not in the book. So you could put in essentially an entire evening's dungeon that's different from what you've already been playing. Or, oh, well, that's just a closet. Or, nope, that's just a dead end. So it gives a lot of freedom to the GM to do what they want. Um, so we got a couple comments in here since we were talking about Spelljammer. Best D&D spaceship for me is still the old Dragon Star.
Mm.
We were talking about Sigil, and Ray says, F the Lady of Pain, the ultimate God Hand character. She makes Sigil so stressful. I dig the Lady of Pain. I think it's a lot of fun. I remember back in the day playing the video game Torment, and
Yeah.
dealing with all the factions and with all this stuff. I thought it was great. I'd love to do more in that particular setting.
Yeah. And I think maybe I wonder if the person who had issues with the Lady of Pain might have been an issue with the GM. I'm just going to hypothesize there. Um, yeah, because that's basically she's whatever the GM wants her to be.
so
Um,
so with your Sigil game, or your Planescape game, did you guys do a session zero? Do you know what kind of stuff uh, you know the group is looking for in that kind of game?
yeah, we did. So we beat S. So like we just played the other Tuesday. We beat Asarak, and we had about an hour and a half left in our allotted time. So we did semi-session zero, where like a couple of us sort of had strong ideas of what we wanted to do. And that's really me and a friend of mine who I'm being Gith Yankee, he's being Gith Sarai.
Nice.
Yep. We'll see how that goes. And then there's some other people who are like, tell us more about Planescape because we're not so familiar with it. And sort of they have maybe ideas of characters they want to do, but they're not as fleshed out. So like someone's probably going to be a cleric, someone's probably going to be a sorcerer. I think we've got a bard who's going to have a low charisma and just try to do spells that don't have attacks or saves.
Well, we have a bard in our ongoing game who, when he started with an 11 charisma,
Hmm.
and he was more about the fighting angle of it, and he was more like um, his expertise was in investigation. So like he's far more intelligent than he is charismatic.
Mm.
So like we always make jokes about like that he's such a bad bard because like he doesn't do the bardic type stuff. He fails to remember to inspire other characters. So it's amusing. We actually have one of the players in that game in the chat. So I wonder if he's going to weigh in. But going back to your comment about wondering whether the guy who had issue with the Lady of Pain and your comment, he's like, you get it. So totally fun there. Um, but so your Gith that you're playing, you're totally against Vlakith, and you want to be a good guy. How did you build him out? What is he?
Yeah, so he's not he's his alignment right now is chaotic neutral. So he's not like I'm gonna rise up against her. He's
Okay.
more like I just wish she would leave me alone. Like I don't want to be in your army. I don't want to go invade stuff and go on raids for you. I just want to live my life. Just you go do your thing. I'll go do my thing. Please don't kill me. Um, yeah, and I just was statting him out earlier and actually had like the really weird experience of putting my +2 into my dump stat. Because Gith Yankee have a +2 strength, and I'm playing a wizard, and I'm like, what am I going to use strength for? I don't know.
Well,
Um,
that in and of itself is one of the wonders of fifth edition. There's a lot of people who use the basic stat array, and they it's like, okay, what do I do with the 8? And what do you do with your +2? So like there are two very dichotomous styles where it's like, all right, well, I want to go completely against type, and that means whatever you're getting that +2 in is where you're going to put that dump stat. And what that pardon me, what that winds up doing when you make those characters, it means in the end you're not suffering any negatives. That means like, okay, as James is saying here, wizards need some strength. Those spell books can get heavy. So it means that, all right, you get to be able to, carry a little bit more. It means when you have to make those athletics checks, like you're not rolling a negative, you know, you could go with proficiency and not feel ridiculous. So like I love making characters that you get into that because at the end when you go looking down that list, like you're not rolling any of your saving throws or skills with a negative. So
mhm.
I think it's fantastic. But
Yeah.
please continue with your wizard, sir.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I remember doing point buy. Like I always, when I did point buy, hated getting negatives. Yeah. When I do a character, what I usually do is I start with the concept, but then once I've got the concept, I try to optimize them as much as I can for that concept. And so, like, obviously I want the high intelligence playing the wizard, so I put that as my top stat, and I do get the +1 from the Gith Yankee. Um,
So
but then I'm on,
you're still rocking the 16. That's nice.
yeah, 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 and we're starting 5th level, so I went ahead and bumped it up to 18 even. So that's good. Um, but yeah, I don't think I've ever done that before where my +2 has been in my dump stat for the character. So.
It's something to think about. I'm very fond of unorthodox character builds, and honestly, like we are talking about, do how much min maxing do you do? And don't get me wrong, when I make characters, like I can get in and role play and have a lot of fun and really get into that aspect. But mechanically, I do like to try and make characters that are fun but effective. And I have to also look at from a build point, what is the most important? Now I'm playing a cleric in our game, and you know, wisdom should be first and foremost the thing that this guy does. And he started off as a human with a 16 wisdom. I'm now 16th level, and leveling up, I wasn't certain whether I should level his intelligence or level his wisdom, because from the get go, he has always been a book nerd. He has things that, like, are studious. He's a knowledge cleric, so therefore he's got expertise in knowledge arcana and knowledge history. That's the thing that he does. He just happens to worship a god besides. So this whole time I've been picking up, um, things to make me more magical and what have you. So I've taken feats like um, magic initiate and ritualist and all these things to become more magical because I worship the god of knowledge and magic. So therefore I should have all of that stuff. Um, and like I wound up putting a poll out to the fans during the live chat, and I'm like, all right, do I go with intelligence, wisdom, or is there another feat I should take? Because to me, there's not a huge advantage in putting those points in wisdom, but everybody voted wisdom. So I'm like, all right, well, now he's wiser. His saves went up by one. He can memorize one more spell. His healings get, that one more point better. But, it's one of those things that you got to make the determination, during play and during character creation of what's important to your character and what are you going to do that's, going to bring you the most fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like we were talking earlier about like different game systems, and like that is one thing that I think other systems can do better is giving you a little bit more flexibility, because like in Dungeons and Dragons, you have a class and you have pretty much every class like the one stat that is going to be most important to that class. And like if you wanted to do, the smart cleric, you'll get penalized. Like game wise, story wise, it can be a lot of fun, but you won't be as good at doing the game part of it as you will, um, as if you did your wisdom highest. And that's just something that I've seen like Savage World, I feel like can be more flexible. Some of those other games out there. Uh, yeah.
What are you looking to do with your wizard? What is his, subclass?
Yeah. So I'm looking at maybe doing the blade or oh, sorry, I'm blanking now. Um, so Forgotten Realms has it's meant originally for elves, but uh,
The sword dancer.
sword dancer, yeah.
With
So I'm
with a
looking at that. I'm probably going to go with because the Githyanki do have the like Gish tradition,
uh
and I think Wizards was thinking Gish should be the Eldritch Knight or whatever,
mm-hmm.
the fighter with a little bit of Wizard. Um, but I was a fighter recently, so I wanted to do a Wizard proper. Um, yeah. So
So
looking at that,
it's called blade singing, and
Blade,
I should have remembered that because back in second edition, I played a blade singer, and it was one of my favorite classes or favorite characters. Um, so lot of fun. So that's interesting. I've seen gishes built in so many different ways. You could just go with Eldritch Knight. You could go with just Blade Singer. But I feel that neither really gets you there. Um, so it's a question of, like, what's going to be the most useful, because honestly, with a D6 hit die, shoving yourself into melee combat, to me, it gets scary. Like I'm
Mhm.
like, you know what? You're gonna squish yourself, and as a full caster, you're gonna get to the point where you're like, why am I bothering to muck around with swords when I've got all of these awesome spells that I could be throwing out there? And I wound up playing in a game where I did that with a warlock, and I played Pact of the Blade Warlock, and we were doing like was designed to be a short overall story arc, and we just played a handful of games, and between every game we were gaining like 3 to 4 levels, and oh, time passed, this happened, blah 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 blah. Well, I realized by the time I was getting 5th level spell slots and I was getting my Mystic Arcanum, I'm like, what is this spear doing for me? I get 2 attacks with it to do like die 8 plus 3, whoop de flip and do. Like, there's not enough oomph to really make him be able to stand up to anyone else that is a melee combatant. So I would offer out um, taking up some other levels to complement your blade singing, however you so choose. Either with maybe getting something from Warlock and going back to the blade, or taking some fighter levels combining with Eldritch Knight. Um, Dave plays in my game. He's got um, 6 or 7 levels of fighter, and the rest are all wizard. And I have to say that it is a massive pain in the ass dealing with his character, because he's got so many fantastic combat spells. He's got plenty of spell slots that he's like, well, I don't have those higher level spells, but I have the slots so I can bump stuff up. And he's
Mhm.
got enough fighting power to really go in there and, put some serious hurt on. Yeah, he's only got the 2 attacks around, but he's got all of the armor proficiencies. He's got the ability to put on things like blur and haste and tensor's transformation. So just something to think about. You can still get in there and mix it up with wizard, because he can throw fireballs like nobody else, or like anybody else. Um, but when he gets in to mix it up, he's got some hit points and the armor proficiencies to kind of back things up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna see how it goes. I do agree that like I'm probably not gonna be using the sword that much, but when I'm looking at my spell list, I think I'm gonna grab some of the like phone and like close burst spells that I don't haven't used much before, just because I've always wanted to stay in the back. Um, and try those out, and like I'll be able to have a pretty good AC, I think. So that'll hopefully make up for the lack of hit point. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be an adventure.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm always trepidatious when I see the wizard deciding, you know what, I'm gonna mix it up in melee. Not everybody can be as lucky as Ace and Shardgale in my game. They were attending a banquet. Oh, weapons and stuff off to the sides. Forget about the armor, and cutthroats attacked the party, and this was fairly early on, and he still had stuck in his head this earlier edition mindset. So he forgot that cantrips were at will. He
Hmm.
he said, "Well, I used all my spells." So he went into combat, and he was doing fisticuffs with the rogue who had a dagger, totally dodged all the attacks, took the dagger from him, with a with a grapple check and a opposed strength rolls, totally gutted the thief with the dagger and charged the next guy up the stairs. And I am like, I think you chose the wrong guy, dude. I think you needed to play a fighter. And it was utterly amusing, that kind of stuff happened. So hopefully, maybe you can channel some of Ace and Shardgale's combat abilities,
Hmm.
and whatnot with that. But it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm gonna make a prediction. You said that you typically play the games for about a year. So you'll have to reach back out, when the campaign is over, or when it's been decisively one way or the other. But your Githzerai compatriots, you guys, are either going to be boon companions and the best of friends, or bitter rivals.
Hmm.
There's no way to go differently, considering your race choices. And I'm gonna say that something is gonna happen in that game, and you guys are gonna someone's gonna save someone's life, and you guys are gonna be the best of friends.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely chose, like, we're friends in real life, of
Oh,
course, and
yeah.
we definitely chose to do the two gifts because we're interested in seeing what happens role playing wise with that. What kind of dynamic that's gonna have. Yeah, I think it should be fun.
Sorry, I'm talking to the chat as well as talking to you.
Oh, no, that's cool.
It's always a fun dichotomy to try and have these dual conversations going, because there's the people that are out there are tuning in to see us and talk to us, as well as get all the stuff with whatever guest that we have on. um, so let's dive back into Runeworld, and we'll talk to that, and get Runewild. My
Yeah,
apologies.
that's
uh,
all right.
and we'll finish up back with what we started with, and see whether we can convince anybody out there as to why they should be getting this awesome thing. So the Runewild is a dark fairy tale sandbox setting for use with the 5th edition world's most popular role playing game. Which, as we know, Kickstarter, you can't mention D&D. You just say 5th edition, but we're not on
Hmm.
Kickstarter. We're just reading what's there, so we know it's designed for D&D.
Yeah,
It's set for characters level 1 through 10. It provides locations, encounters, and NPCs to support campaigns lasting months or years, or to be adapted into other campaigns. And it's planning to be a 160-page book. So to get a 160-page book printed, as well as the PDF, for $30, I really think that's a steal. You mentioned what was it specifically called? The Denizen of the Runewild.
yeah,
So you said that that's going to be essentially like a random roll chart for, hey, you're in the Runewild and you encounter chicka chicka, you roll your dice, consult the chart, and voila, this is what you get.
yeah.
So these are going to be, as far as I'm concerned, it's your random encounter table, and I imagine it's not going to be all NPCs. Some things could be monsters. Some things could be just locations. Is that am I correct here?
So, so we've got like a separate random encounter table that
Okay.
has that sort of stuff. This is more like you've met an NPC,
Okay.
and it's like it's usually a Fey type NPC. So maybe you've met a Dryad or you've met a Satyr, but it's not just any Satyr. It's gonna be like Bob the Satyr. I'm sure the backers can come up with a better name and then give a little description of like how is this Satyr different, like he is off collecting shoes from people. And like, if the PCs give him his shoes, maybe he'll give him a blessing, and if not, like he'll maybe give him some sort of curse or something like that. Um,
So, do you have a set number of denizens that you're looking for from the fan base and from supporters,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
or
I mean, we've limited it to 100, and right now it's split 50 in the PDF, 50 in the print. But if one of those fills up, I'll move over some slots because it's going to be a D100 roll, and
okay?
whatever we get. And just that reminds me of one of the other things that I love so much about the book is there are tons of random charts. I'm someone who really loves the Wand of Wonder, really loves Book of Many Things. Like anytime you get to roll on a random chart, I enjoy it. Um,
So let me guess. You love the Chaos Sorcerer?
yep, yeah.
Nice.
Um, we actually in the Runewild had a chaos sorcerer, and Bill, the GM slash writer, decided there wasn't enough chaos in the chaos sorcerer table, so he created his own chaos sorcerer table. It's not in their book. It was just in our campaign, but that's the sort of thing that we do, and yeah, there's going to be a preview coming out hopefully early next week about the Goblin Market that has a bunch of those random tables, got like random stuff you find at the market.
Nice.
Some of them are, and everywhere from like a baby's scream, baby's scream, yeah, a baby's scream trapped in a bottle to like a knight, a little figurine of a knight that casts enlarge on you, but every time it casts enlarge, the figurine gets a little bit smaller until it disappears.
That is really cool. I
Yeah.
like that. Um,
Um, yeah. So those are just examples of the sort of things that are in the Rune Wild and that are on some of these random tables. There's a ton of them. Uh,
Nerd
rolling
Nerdarchy likes their goblins, almost as much as we like dwarves.
on.
So I mean, we wouldn't have a goblin mascot if we didn't. So I'm definitely intrigued into seeing what is in the goblin market. That knight figurine is pretty awesome. I might have to steal that at some point in time. So if you guys are out there, watching live or watching later, I heavily recommend you go check out this Kickstarter. Um, you know, I'd really like to see them be able to make it because, as I said, in the beginning, the artwork looks amazing. It seems pretty cool, and based on what's there, it's something that you could literally pick up and plop right into your game. And I'm certain if there's not something in the book, you as a GM are creative enough as to say, why the Feywild has bled over into your world to create the Runewild, and you can add this and make it lots of fun, and have some new options and new things for your game. As we said, it's got new monsters, it's got new magic items, it's gonna have fan based created NPCs, and there's ways that you can add your own. I might have to figure out what I want to add. Um, as I get in there. So I want to thank you, Matthew, for coming on and talking with us. Um, and sharing all of your thoughts and information in regards to this Kickstarter with us. To you guys out there in the chat and what have you, I am going to apologize for the fourth day in a row of why the computers hate me and why I can't seem to have a good stream. I had somebody look at my computer, and I've done speed tests, so I don't know what it is, and I greatly apologize for it. So with that, until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Thanks.